today in Starbucks. I'm really interested to see what your data shows because the one thing that I've been kind of saying and thinking in regards to this company is I'm sure people might be excited to go, get their coffee, but they're not going to go get 45 for all the ones they miss. So pent up demand can't really make up for the lost demand that they face.
No, you're right. And Starbucks was tracking really well. I mean, the company was doing well leading up into the coronavirus shutdowns. The company was plus 8% on a year-over-year basis in terms of what they put out. The company put this out themselves prior, but then really warned that this is going to be a tough patch for them. And when we look at LikeFolio data, purchase intent volume, that's the green line on this chart right here. That's the number of people talking about doing business at Starbucks. That's a 30-day moving average. And you can see a very, very sharp down move as this coronavirus shutdown has hit. In fact, prior to the shutdown or including 2 weeks of the shutdown into the end of the quarter, what Starbucks is going to report, we actually saw not too bad, just a very slight drop year over year. But now, we've got Starbucks at pacing negative 25% year over year compared to the prior year for this quarter that's going on right now. And so we think that there's been a really big drop in Starbucks business. A lot of stores are closed. A lot of stores have limited hours. And like you said, Alex, there's only so much you can do to bring that back. That's just lost revenue out the door. It's not coming back.
Andy, real quick, when you look at something like that and the unique reason for this whole economy's problems right now, if we look 30 to 60 days in the future, are we going to see that number, in your opinion? Now, obviously, this is your opinion. None of us here have a crystal ball. Are you expecting that green line that drops off so precipitously to fire back on the upside as these stores start to open and the U.S. economy starts to at least rev back up towards its levels?
Of course, I expect some uptick as more stores open, but I think that, like we've talked about on this show multiple times, there are behavioral changes that are occurring, and some companies take advantage of these changes. Slack, Zoom, all of the ones that are built for remote work. But Starbucks, I fear, is in the opposite camp, and it's one of these companies that people are learning a new way to get their fix. They are, ordering Keurigs at home. They're starting to do things themselves, or go even to local shops that are staying open just out of desperation. And I think that type of behavior shift takes a really long time to come back. Starbucks was firing on all cylinders. They were getting more money out of every customer coming through. They really had the country in a very good place in terms of being addicted to the products and services that Starbucks offers. And now you just get this massive break, and it changes behaviors, it changes spending patterns, and it changes routines. And I think that that's going to be very difficult to get back to where Starbucks was before this all started. Then the longer it goes on, the harder it becomes for Starbucks to regain those customers and that buying trend that people were on.
Yeah, and I think it's an interesting point, and it's actually something that I've spent a lot of time kind of trying to think about, because the one thing for sure that Starbucks can say they offer is convenience. And out of necessity, largely people who would like to, have a breakfast, in the morning and grab a coffee, flock to Starbucks as part of their routine and habit on the way to work. But out of necessity now, a lot of those people are, like you said, making it at home, whether that's through a Keurig or traditional coffee making, and they're making breakfast alongside that because they have no other choice. And, as a lot of the clinical, research would suggest, after a certain amount of time, new habits are formed. And we've certainly been in these shelter in place and lockdowns in a lot of the urban environments that Starbucks targets for a lot longer time than would be necessary for some of those habits to be formed. How difficult is it going to be for Starbucks to win back that business at a premium in a time where there's uncertainty in terms of, economic strength going forward? If people are going to claw back and cut some of these premium products out, it seems now, the more I think about it, that Starbucks might be one of those ones that was once a staple and now a discretionary, just given some of these things we've just been talking about.
Yeah, I'll give a counterpoint to that, though. I think we've made the point really well that Starbucks could be in a little bit of trouble in terms of spending habits. The one thing that they do have going for them is that they do have an app on 19 million phones right now. They have loyalty members that they can reach out to, that they can lure back into their stores that other companies simply don't have. And so I think that Starbucks is going to benefit quite a bit from the fact that their loyalty program and mobile ordering program was so successful pre-shutdown. It will allow them to ramp up a little bit quicker, but I still think that they have an uphill battle in terms of those consumer macro trends and behavior shifts that you're talking about, Alex.
No, and I love you bringing up the app because, we talked about this with Chipotle and some of the other brands as well, that this mobile-only ordering is actually potentially an opportunity for them to get more and more users on those particular platforms. Then you point out, then they can market directly to them. They establish this loyalty to the brand. Kevin, another thing we haven't talked about and that kind of ties in here is I believe it's Luckin Brands, right? The Luckin Coffee brand, obviously facing uncertainties and scrutiny as well, kind of seen as a major competitor in some parts of the world. That could potentially be, something that helps Starbucks as well. There's a lot to unpack here, but we're certainly going to find out some information, Kevin.
Yeah, I'll give one more counter to Andy's counter, and that is everyone who was going to work and possibly getting Starbucks on the way to work. Newsflash, there's a Starbucks about an eighth or a quarter of a mile from their home as well. So that app, they may just be switching to an address close to work to an address close to home as their pickup place. Because one thing that Starbucks has that can only really be rivaled by McDonald's, and that is scale. There's one near your office, there's one near your home, there's one near the airport, there's one near everywhere you go. There's a Starbucks within what appears to be an arm's length, guys.
Yeah, and Andy, I'll give you kind of the last thoughts here before we go to a break here as we're running close on time. With the scale that Kevin mentions, they also have one of the most recognizable and powerful brands of all companies as well. Probably a company better positioned to weather a short-term disruption than maybe the local coffee house. Does that have anything to do with it?
Oh, absolutely. I think they're in a powerful position like a lot of large companies are. They can handle a shutdown for longer than the local coffee shop, which is running on 6% margins and can't produce any revenue for a month. That's a recipe for disaster. And so I think Starbucks will benefit, unfortunately, from a reduced level of competition at the local level. The longer this goes on, the truer that is. And so I think it's really just kind of that battle. The investor has to think through this a little bit and think about, the longer this goes on, does what Starbucks gains from a competitive standpoint by being the biggest dog on the block get outweighed by these behavior shifts that are occurring in people's lives? I know a lot of people are slowing down. They're taking things a little bit more step by step. They're going to be slow going back to work. It's going to be a different mentality for a lot of people. And I'm not sure rushing through the Starbucks drive-through every morning, which was a habit before, will return. And so, I think they're going to report a pretty good quarter considering, but it's the outlook that they'll probably avoid, just like every other company right now, because it just doesn't look good.